Great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever this conversation finds you. This is Gray Transforms. I am Travis Gray. Today we are transforming with the brilliant light that is David Bruner. He was the senior minister and spiritual director for the Center for Spiritual Living San Jose for 2.5 decades. I had the pleasure to be introduced to David and the Center for Spiritual Living through my loving relationship with the delightful Darren O'Donnell, who's also the CEO of OsteoStrong San Jose. So I had met Darren the day before I decided that, or she had mentioned to me that she was going to this Center for Spiritual Living. And it was a little different than your everyday church, like the Christian, very like the dogmatic ideology of that a religion can feel like, or that a church can feel like. It sounded different. It sounded more aligned with the field that I am in, transpersonal psychology. So I decided, I'll explore that. And when I looked at the event page the night after meeting Darren, I looked at the event page and there was a guest speaker on that Sunday. And that guest speaker wrote a book called Callings, and that author is Greg Lavoie, and Greg has been on the podcast as well, so you can check out his episode. But he had a required that book Callings was a required text in one of my classes at Sophia University for my master's of counseling psychology. So I was like, wow, this is an awesome opportunity to get this book signed and check all of that out. And every Sunday after that Sunday, I missed very few. So I continued to go to the Center for Spiritual Living, and a lot of that was due to David Bruner. So thank you so much, David, for being here. How are you today?
I'm great, Travis, and it's really good to be with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate being invited. It's been a while since I've seen you. It makes my heart really happy to see you.
Makes me happy to see you too. I found you to be such an authentic being on, like there's this sense that somebody can be, like acting or, trying to be the minister or trying to be something, like trying to put on this show that is maybe it feels like a facade, but I have always found your sermons, I've always found you're just a wonderful orator, a wonderful storyteller, and so authentic in your presenting all of that. How did I know you've told this story before, but I would love for the audience that doesn't know you, I would love for you to tell the story about how you got into this, how you got into ministry. When did that call you?
Oh, I love that question. It's a great moment to reflect. I'm from the Los Angeles area in California, and I was 17 years old, and I was working at a supermarket. I was a supermarket checker. I was working the night shift, and we're talking 1980. This would have been like 1985 and then 86. No, it was actually 1920. Anyway, I was working in a supermarket, and when the bars would close, there was nowhere for people to go. Back then, there were not a lot of 24-hour anything. So the bars would close and people would come hang out in the supermarket. And so I found it a great opportunity to be in the presence of people who had nowhere to go, but had a need to be met. And there was a customer who used to come in every night. She wasn't there because the bars had closed. She couldn't sleep. And she couldn't sleep because her son had been diagnosed with HIV. And in that period, what that really meant was he was most likely going to die. And she was searching for alternatives. And when I would get off at 6 a.m, she would be there in the parking lot and we would go explore. I remember we would be checking out functions that were teaching us about using crystals, and we would do tarot cards and past life regressions and whole life readings and Shirley MacLaine workshops and EST and Landmark and Coursera. And one day she said, "Would you go with me to this church?" Now, I knew that I was gay, and I knew that I had at that time there was a conflict between my church-given religion and my God-given intelligence. And I was missing my Catholic roots, the experience of spiritual community. But I was torn. So when she said, "Do you want to go to church?" I'm thinking, "Nah, I'd rather not." But here was a mother who was desperate. So the only answer I could give was sure. And when I was at that church, that was the Huntington Beach Church of Religious Science, and the minister was Dr. Peggy Bassett. And I remember her saying, "Good morning, all you seroptimists." And then she went, "Wait, this is the wrong notes." And then she just started talking, and I leaned in because I thought, wow, this is very, very real. And while she was talking about personal responsibility and about there being no limits with what any human can do, something in me began to awaken. And Janet leaned over and said, "You're gonna do that." And I looked at her and said, "I am." And that's how I got my calling. That's how it all began. So
How did Janet know? How did Janet know that you were going to do that?
I love that question. No one's ever asked me that one, Travis. Probably because she saw how what I was hearing and experiencing brought me to life. Like I, it wasn't like I was with her because she needed help. I too was in a space of question and seeking, and I was hungry. I was really, really hungry, and she must have seen that.
Yeah. So she saw how it was reflecting this light in you, that it was ready to be born, ready to flourish, ready to blossom. And it's done such an amazing job. So many people love you and have loved your teachings and have been transformed by your work. For 2.5 decades of ministerial work, that is a long time to be, senior minister, to operate the church and do all of the great work that you've done in the world. And it has always returned to you multiplied abundantly. So
Totally.
I would, yeah. So I've been really early on when I knew with Greg Lavoie and Colleen's, I knew, oh wow, that has some connection to transpersonal psychology. So that inspired me to continue to go. And then I think the very first sermon that I heard you speak about, you had spoken about the banners. And it was really the initiation for me into the science of mind of Ernest Holmes, the Center for
Mhm.
Spiritual Living, really what this teaching is about. And it was inspiring for me for it to be so aligned with the field of transpersonal psychology, because it's not a single religious thing. It's the weaving together of all that we can learn from all of the different religions, and even beyond that. And there's a synthesis involved, and really beautifully put. You had spoken about the different religions. I don't know if right offhand you're able to speak to that
Mhm.
again. I have it in front of me as well, but
I
can you
have it
share with
here.
us what
I have it
are
here and here.
you got it there? Yeah. So can you share with us that piece?
Yeah. I was always moved, really, really moved, Travis, when I would watch my mother. Her name was Dolores. When I would watch her every Saturday night, she would take all of us kids and we'd go to St. Gertrude's, the church in which I was raised, and we would go for confession. And for me, it was always the same. It was just something I had to do. So I'd go in, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 1 week since my last confession." I always had the same one. "During this week, I lied, I disobeyed my parents, and I fought with my brothers and sisters." It was always the same. Um, but when my mother would leave the confessional and all of us kids would be hanging around in the back pew, my mother would give us a look. And the look was, it was a clear message. And that was, don't speak. And she would walk past us, and she would walk up the center aisle of this old dark church, and she would drop to her knees just below the statue of Mary. And her head would be bowed, and she would be totally silent and still for a very long time. Now, I don't think any of my siblings nor I knew what was really going on, but we knew something was happening. And then when my mother would stand up and do the sign of the cross and look at us, we could see she was not the same woman that had gone into the confessional. There was transformation. Now, I'm bringing that up because fast forward many years, I had a friend named Brian, and he was a Nichiren Shoshu Buddhist, the sect that would practice the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I noticed that he too, after he finished his chanting, was transformed. And I wondered, we're talking 40 years ago, I wondered, why is it my mother, the Catholic, and my friend Brian, the Buddhist, practice very different practices, but they both seem to be producing results? And that began a serious curiosity and search for me. When I went to this religious science church, I began to notice that they were speaking about religion and spirituality in a way that was distinct from when I was in university. Because I don't know if you went into comparative religion classes. They usually look to see where are religions different, but in this particular place, they were looking at what are the similarities. So, back to your question. That was a long answer. Here's the question. At the San Jose Center for Spiritual Living, there are 8 banners hanging in the sanctuary. There is a cross for Christianity. There is the Star of David for Judaism. There is the Om symbol for Hinduism. There is Islam, Confucianism, and various others. But in a nutshell, here it is. In Judaism, we learn there's one God. In Christianity, we learn you can have a personal relationship with it. In Hinduism, we learn it has many faces and many voices, and yours is one of its faces and one of its voices. In the Tao, we learn, I've been saying this for so many years, it's kind of beginning to dissipate like a dream.
Sure.
We learn that no matter what you call it, you're still not it, because it's always more than what you call it. And in the native traditions, in pagan and earth-based traditions, we learn that everything is interconnected. And in Buddhism, we learn that there is suffering in the world, and suffering has a cause and a cure. And in Islam, we learn that one of the cures is to practice your practice. And in the science of mind, we learn that all of them have 3 things in common. This is what really moved me. It's why I think my mom's prayers as a Catholic and Brian's chanting as a Buddhist produce results. Almost every religion, whether it's deity-based or earth-based, they all have 3 things in common. One of them is they all believe that there is a power that's in and through everything, including you and me. Second thing they all teach in some way or another is the law of cause and effect. What you put out is what you get back. What you plant is what you will reap. Buddhists tell you, tell me what you think about, tell me what you dwell upon, I'll show you what you are. Mm. And the third thing is what some call the 11th commandment. Don't do anything to anyone else that you wouldn't want someone to do unto you. So that's a very long answer for those banners.
Yeah.
And I don't have any answers. I just keep getting more and more questions, but I'm moved by them.
It's a valuable way to look at the comparative religions in a way that is not comparing, but in integrating, weaving together, looking at what Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy. Alan Watts spoke about that even further, and that perennial wisdom that the many rivers lead to the same ocean. It's a really beautiful way to recognize just how those rivers are moving to that same one ocean. I really, as you were saying this, I really, my mind stuck on because recently I've been looking at the, oh, I don't know which way it is. Oh, this way. I've been looking at the Tao Te Ching a lot, and the Tao Te Ching has been coming up in conversations a lot. And you had just mentioned that that no matter what we think it is, try to try to claim it to be or something, it is still not that. It is still also more than that. So. What would you say is, as somebody that has given 20 years of sermons, you've spoken so much, and you just said you're not finding more answers, you're finding more questions, you're continuing to ask these really beautiful profound questions about the nature of your relationship with spirit. uh, how can, like, do words become a do they become a crux? Can language become a can it get in the way of understanding? Can language get in the way of our understanding? Does it does it does it clog, like, this channel of relating to God at times? Can you speak to that? It's a valuable way to look at the comparative religions in a way that is not comparing, but in integrating, weaving together, looking at what Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy. Alan Watts spoke about that even further, and that perennial wisdom that the many rivers lead to the same ocean. It's a really beautiful way to recognize just how those rivers are moving to that same one ocean. I really, as you were saying this, I really, my mind stuck on because recently I've been looking at the, oh, I don't know which way it is. Oh, this way. I've been looking at the Tao Te Ching a lot, and the Tao Te Ching has been coming up in conversations a lot. And you had just mentioned that that no matter what we think it is, try to try to claim it to be or something, it is still not that. It is still also more than that. So. What would you say is, as somebody that has given 20 years of sermons, you've spoken so much, and you just said you're not finding more answers, you're finding more questions, you're continuing to ask these really beautiful profound questions about the nature of your relationship with spirit. uh, how can, like, do words become a do they become a crux? Can language become a can it get in the way of understanding? Can language get in the way of our understanding? Does it does it does it clog, like, this channel of relating to God at times? That can you speak to that?
Hmm. Dude, you like to dive into the deep end, don't you?
I, yeah, we dive into the deep end for sure.
I remember hearing one of my early teachers say that all creation exists in language. That's where creation exists. It's always in language. What you really, really want in life, whatever it is you want or need, is not just what you're going to find on the shelves of Walmart or Target or the supermarket or be delivered by Amazon. It exists in your mouth. And and this is where my experience of studying so many religions and philosophies over the years have proven consistent. And that is, no matter what's going on, whatever you name it makes it so. So whether you're having a shitty day or a great day, it really is simply from the perspective coming out of your mouth.
Mm.
I'm moved that at all times there's always three futures at play. Even right now, for you, Travis, and for me, and for anyone who might be listening or watching, there's always three futures at play. One, there's a future you hope for. I hope I win the lottery. I hope I lose weight. I hope I can fit into my bikini. Two, there's the future you plan for. I plan for my retirement. I plan for that vacation. I plan for this podcast. Or three, the probable, almost certain future if you don't do something to intervene with the inertia. So the future you hope for, the future you plan for, or the probable, almost certain future. And for me, the distinguishing element, what produces the results I want versus the results I get, the factor would be language. What am I calling it? And that's turned out to be really, really important when I'm thinking about. Let me just stop right there.
Yeah, you know, you noticing or you know, mentioning, I really like to dive in. I do, definitely, and a part of diving into this specific kind of question. I know the question wasn't generated perfectly, but it was like diving into that specific thing is because I'm really fascinated by the Tao Te Ching is really good at speak, you know, the Tao, the way it cannot be, there's like quotes around, like it cannot be, it can't be perfectly sang. It's beyond the song. It's beyond the note. It's the intangible that is between all of the things. And there is something in connection to language. My first language being American Sign Language, my mother being deaf, my grandfather being deaf. There's something really tremendous about how their lived experience has happened in life, and all of the information and all of the experience that I personally have in spiritual environments or in spiritual teachings, there's often music, there's often song, there's often this voicing of words and language, but in sign language, it's a little bit more subtle. The language is more subtle because it is not defined in these enunciated syllables and things. It's a bodily communication of an underlying message that is aiming to be communicated. And in some ways, when we speak about spirit, when we speak about God, we're using language to point at things. And I love what you just brought in, the three ways that we are, you know, our future, our present, and what would happen if we were to do nothing. Like if we are to stay static, then our life is to, like, you know, you age very quickly if you do not move. You disintegrate. You're allowing like the universe to take you back over, something like that. And
I had a teacher, by the way. I had a teacher. He said, when you stop living, life will take you out.
Yeah. Life will take you out if you stop living, if you stop moving, if you stop interacting, engaging, and the level at which that you are conscious in that engagement with life is the level that you're going to be able to rise to or fulfill or attract into your sphere. And then this also seems to be very connected to what you do in NLP work. So you know, the way that you mentioned those three things, how have you been inspired by NLP? I know that this is sort of recent for you, the NLP. Is that right?
Yeah, I started going for my certifications only a couple of years ago. But that's because I knew that I was sunsetting one career. I
Mhm.
was going to be semi-retired. I was completely retired from the pulpit, but I knew that I was going to create an encore career.
Yeah.
And NLP was just adding one more tool to my toolbox.
Yeah.
And it's to me, it's just like a parallel train track. That
Mm.
most of the things that I've studied, they're like many trains on parallel tracks. They're all very similar, and
Right.
they complement each other.
All leading to that same ocean. So, for those that don't know, what is NLP, neuro linguistic programming?
Yeah.
What is it? How have you been inspired by this? How has that seemed to be so aligned with your teachings already?
So my understanding of neuro linguistic programming is almost identical to my understanding of practicing the science of mind. And for those who don't know what that is, science of mind is not science of brain. Mind is a synonym for what some people call God or universe. So it's like the science of God or the science of life. Neuro-linguistic programming for me is like an owner's manual for the individual. Uh, if there, everything is programming. Everything is programming and strategies. The way I brush my teeth is strategies. The way I fight, the way I make up, the way the way I get to work, the way I prepare for a podcast, the way I get ready for dinner, all of it is strategies and programming. And if it's not producing the results I want, change the programming. Like if I'm not getting to the destination to which I wanted to head, change the path. I heard somebody say once, you might be you might be you might be climbing the ladder, but the ladder may you might be on the right ladder, but that ladder may be leaning against the wrong wall. So what they all have in common, NLP, science of mind, religious science, um, almost any modality I've followed, they they all point to the importance of integrity. And do you mind if we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Having lived in Northern California for 2.5 decades, I noticed that integrity is often used as a statement of morality, like you're late, you're out of integrity, which basically they're saying you're late, you're a bad person. And when I use the word integrity, I'm not using it that way. Yeah, I'm using integrity distinct as workability. So when I say I'm going to do something and I don't, it's not a moral issue. It's just not a workable issue. I don't get the kind of results that I want. And I'm bringing this up, Travis, because it's the important distinction between my word and words. Some people really get hung up on words. You're not using the right words, or the words in the Bible, or the Quran, or the Veda, or the Dhammapada, or the Bhagavad Gita. And we can get tripped up by words. I mean, even in religious science, they say, I release these words, but these words are just words. My word is more than words. So integrity has been a really keen interest of mine. I was wondering, why is it that some prayers seem to work and some prayers don't? That's a question I pondered for years. And I don't know for anybody else, but I know for myself that when I say I'm going to go to the gym and I don't, when I say I'm not going to eat that extra chocolate and I do, when I say I'm not going to be bitchy at my friends and I am, then I'm not a man of my word. So what I'm saying doesn't produce results. So I can't expect that prayers will produce results because my word doesn't mean anything because I say things and I don't mean it. So I don't think that when I pray that God is some reluctant deity that's kind of sadistic and kind of withholds things. And if I pray just right, then I persuaded God to give me what I want or to let go of the goodies. That's never worked for me. I'm beginning to really get on a deep level that the reason it's important that I keep my word is because then when I pray, I'm speaking my word, it's going to happen because I'm taking a stand for it, because I know that my word means something.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not sure if I went down a rabbit hole.
No, I like where you went, because the integrity and the wholeness, that is an essential goal or driving purpose for transpersonal psychology. The etymology of those words, the study of the soul transforming, transcending the personal or the ego, to but the goal of that is the transformation into a wholeness, or maybe a sum of the parts that are greater than the original whole. And
Mhm.
so you're further expanding, and the awareness, the consciousness is further expanded and grown upon. So I think this is fascinating, the integrity. I'm gonna dive again, and I'm interested in this connection of, you said, the programming of NLP. This is all the programming, and then our word being more powerful than our words. How does one, you know, I guess you do it through action, maybe through the ways that you are conscious of your being in a place. Say you're going to be, kind in this place, so you're being conscious with your word and your intentions to be in such a way, so that that is the program that you continue to condition yourself with. My current research is interested in this aspect of agency of the individual. I think it's a really important concept for spiritual traditions across the world, in all ways, because at some level that there may be a certain spiritual thought or perspective, might be that we are in a determined universe, we're in a determined world, that it's only God that is making all of our decisions for us. It's God's will, and none of my own. Where do you fall in, or where do you perceive as like the intersection of somebody making a choice to do the conditioning of their own neurolinguistic programming, doing the work of being in integrity with their word, and that it is just sort of happening to you? I don't know. Is that clear?
I think it is,
Okay.
or it isn't. It is as much as my mind can grasp it.
Yeah.
Being a pulpit minister for so long was a real blessing,
Yeah.
because I promised myself very early on that I wouldn't get on a stage and ask someone to do something that I myself was not willing to do. Because I guess deep down inside, and maybe not so deep, maybe even on the surface, I'm pretty cynical. And one way to override my cynicism um, about others was to make sure that I stayed in integrity with my own word. So I remember I would I sat in many, many congregations in my lifetime, and the cynic in me would be, sort of like a curmudgeon, just arms crossed, like, I don't believe them. There was a part of me that was just doubting, because what they were saying wasn't seeming to resonate with what I was feeling or seeing or sensing in the room. There was a disparity. So I promised myself that I would only I would only ask people to consider doing something if I myself was doing it. So what was your question?
But
I actually, I remember, if you don't mind me stepping on your words, I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
where I
yeah.
was going with this. Where I
Mhm.
was going is, in all of that time, I was aware that I would, in metaphors or stories or illustrations or parables, just describing what's going on in my life and in my week, and inviting people on a journey to explore their own lives and their own experience. I noticed that that it's not uncommon for people to sit in a congregation or to sit in a room listening to a speaker or to watch or participate in a podcast, for people to continue to seek more information or more understanding. So, but the level below that was that understanding means nothing if action doesn't follow it. So you can have all this knowledge in the world, like God is good, life is good, there's no limits, but you're still living cranky and grouchy and angry and reactive. So all this knowledge is irrelevant. And I have this image in my head, understanding how a push-up works, but not doing the push-up doesn't get you results.
Yeah.
Conversely, not understanding how a push-up works, but doing a push-up will get you results. So it's almost as if understanding is irrelevant. And I did a lot of study. One of the first gifts that Mauricio, my mate, one of the first gifts he gave to me, we had been dating about a year, and he gave me a slalom ski. It's a single water ski. And I remember receiving this and thinking, this is the worst gift I've ever gotten in my entire life. Like, he knows nothing about me because, I'm kind of a nerd. I was back then kind of a fashionista, total surface level, shallow. My sister said, David, you're about as deep as a puddle. I received this gift thinking, you don't know anything about me. Well, it turns out he knew more about me than I thought. Turns out I'm a little bit of an athlete, and it turns out I absolutely love being physical. But why I'm bringing up that ski, I did all kinds of research on YouTube, watching videos, how to do it. And it really comes down to this. The only way to learn how to ski is in the water. It's the only way to learn how to do it. And the only way to learn about God is to actually dive into it. The only way to learn about who you really are is to be willing to go into those dark, deep recesses and corners. The only way to experience a world that works for everyone is by expressing possibility, generosity, forgiveness. So the distinction is to get out of my head and get into my life. That was a real big thing. And that was probably one of the focuses of my ministry, which is pretty much the place in which you and I met.
Yeah.
Was get out of my head, get into my life. So if it's true that life can be good, then I need to be an expression of it.
Yeah. So that's great. It seems like that puts the act, the yourself as a verb, as an action, as a doing in the world, being in the world, getting out of your mind into your life. That it seems like that puts, the doing the push-up is more valuable than understanding how the push-up works. But then, how much of the, then at what is the conditioning, how important is the conditioning? If you've ever seen that like iceberg, it's like a little bit of it is the conscious piece above the water, and then the bigger portion, the majority of the portion is the unconscious. It's under the surface of the water. So is my action, that little bit that is above the water, more important than this big unconscious conditioned piece? And maybe, this is just a question that just goes on. Like, is there any like good, perfect answer to it? Maybe not. It's just an inquiry.
It's a beautiful inquiry. I'm moved by that, Travis.
Yeah.
Actually, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
So in the organization through which I got my certifications for NLP and coaching, that's in addition to my former life as a clergyman. There is much conversation about how the minority of information we take in is conscious and the majority of information we take in is unconscious. Now, I'm about to give you some numbers, and these are numbers that I learned in the classes, my certification classes. I don't think they're verifiable, but that's irrelevant. I think it might be metaphorical. So they would say, we take in about 186 BPS, bits per second, of information consciously through what we hear, see, smell, taste, and feel. We take in about 186 bits per second, but we take in about 2 million bits per second unconsciously. And that unconscious side is available and accessible to every individual, you and me and your Aunt Teresa. We all have access. Most people are not curious enough to really explore it. So what they will do is get in the stands of their life, watch the arena of their life, but never get onto their life because they're in their head with what they think they know consciously, when all the while everything they need to do to produce results actually exist for them. So I'm keenly interested in exploring the unconscious for information, guidance, access. And one of the ways I'm finding solutions is working with a Jungian therapist who's helping me to interpret and discover the information that's coming through my dreams. Every one of us have dreams. People say, I don't dream. Everybody dreams. Most people don't remember. But I had a therapist friend who said, every night your unconscious is writing you text messages and sending you emails. You should at least be polite enough to read them. So I'm paying attention to that iceberg below the water, because that's where those impulses are poking and prodding us. And also that's where the programming is.
My Aunt Teresa is going to be so happy that you shouted her out.
You don't really have an Aunt Teresa, right?
I have an Aunt Teresa. Yeah, I have an Aunt Teresa.
I was kidding.
I don't know if she watches my podcast, but I'm an Aunt Teresa, and yeah, that's really interesting. We do have the opportunity to explore that 2 million bits of information that is there. So many people have an inbox of emails, 20,000 emails that have not been opened. I'm one of them. I have like a junk email, and then I instead of trying to clear that up and make that work, I just created a new email, and then this new email will be like the more professional email, and then that other one will be kind of like where junk goes to. But have some respect enough for your own life, your own mind, to open those emails, open those text messages is really beautiful. So I want to shift here a little bit. I know that you and I both love so much. This is like my early on. I had an Aunt Sandy, so now Aunt Sandy is going to be really happy that I shouted her out too. Aunt Sandy, she is my mother's sister, and she is hearing. So my mother is deaf. My Aunt Sandy was she was worried, or maybe not worried, but she saw that it is really valuable for a child to have somebody that would read to them. And so her and I developed a really strong bond and relationship around Harry Potter. And so Harry Potter, her and I would read the Harry Potter books. And at first, maybe, book one, she probably read all of book one, but I would read some of it. And then we move on. We talk about the books. Eventually the movies started coming out. We'd watch the movies and things like that. And Harry Potter just can, like, over the years, it has maybe when we were first when I was first into it, it was great. And I didn't have the intuitive understanding of the spiritual underlying, or the hero's journey, the principles, and all of the golden nuggets and wisdom that is built into the story. I didn't understand it, but for J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, for her to have created a book that is sold in some areas more, that just such a high volume selling book, it speaks to how well she was able to bring in for the Jungians, the collective unconscious symbolism, the archetypal symbolism into that story, into that narrative, and because of that, it has all of the beautiful wisdom in it that we value so much. And over the years, over my growth and development in spiritual understanding and in this field of transpersonal psychology, for sure, for your sermons that in the Center for Spiritual Living, the Science of Mind, all these different books that it has become, some other seeds and other fertilizers that can be used to gain an even deeper understanding of the narrative and the story of Harry Potter. Can you tell us about your love for Harry Potter?
Yeah, let me give context that I'm aware of the current controversy going on with Joe Rowling and trans activists and
That's
if you
true.
don't mind,
And this is June. This is a LGBTQ month, LGBTQ awareness month. So it's good to give that background. I forget that J.K. Rowling has that controversial thing.
I do too, and I'm actually grateful that I do, because I'm able to bracket that and put it aside. Just like there were some people who would say things about the Bible that could be offensive, hurtful, demeaning, degrading, but in shunning the wisdom that comes from the Bible or the Quran or any of the great books, we miss the wisdom that's being presented because we get caught up in it. So I want to bracket that controversy, but just to say that I'm aware of it. In a nutshell, the message is so profoundly moving, and it's so in alignment with every great tradition I've ever read, basically, that no matter who you think you are, no matter how your life is working, no matter how abused or forgotten or neglected or mistreated you are, you have the ability to create magic, and that you have a great wealth that exists within your reach, and you just don't know it. And one of the things that first appeared to me moving in the stories of Potter in all 7 books is that if you're not trained in using your spiritual tools, if you're not trained, you can be messy with them. But typically you're more powerful when you're angry or afraid. But often you will burn people or hurt people with your power when you're angry or afraid. So when you consciously learn how to use it, it amplifies its power, and you can use it on purpose for specific results. That's a horrible way of diminishing or
I thought that
distilling.
was an amazing way of speaking to it. So do not do not
Okay.
minimize what you just said there. I think that was incredible. No matter how much you're neglected, no matter what the circumstances of the soil that you have grown through, the dirt and the mud that you have grown from, no matter what those initial maybe foundational circumstances have been in your life, there's still a wealth of magic and accessible. And if you're not conscious and practicing and getting better and opening those unconscious emails and diving in to know more about yourself and how the tools apply to you, your relationship to them, how you can use them for greater good. If you're not doing that, then your anger, your frustration, your emotional upheaval, your emotional charging in negative ways can be very powerful, and in ways that might not be serving your best good or the people around you. And so there is a value in knowing that. I'm thinking of like Ron Weasley having a broken wand, like a wand, and then he gets angry, and I'm thinking about the movies and the books, but he gets angry, and he wants to put a curse for
Eat slugs.
Malfoy. So
Eat slugs.
slugs, yeah,
Eat slugs.
eat slugs, and then he eats the slugs.
Yeah, because it rebounded on him.
Right. it rebounded on him. So there's all of these like cool little nuggets in there. I really love how another maybe controversy. I'm sorry to bring all in this like controversy stuff, but another potentially controversial figure is Dr. Jordan Peterson. But he had inspired some of the ways that I look at Harry Potter. He had spoken about the microcosm, or the meta game that is Quidditch. And Quidditch is this, there's this seeker, there's, Harry Potter is, he has no father, no mother, right? They passed away when he was very young, because they were murdered. So and so now he has this foster parenting, and there's an archetypal symbolism of the hero having no parents, or no father, no mother, at the beginning of their story. This is like now getting into some Joseph Campbell stuff, like the beginning of the story, not having your parents is a part of the narrative, but then you in your life are a seeker. You're seeking what? You're seeking your golden snitch. You're seeking like your purpose, your mission, maybe your drive. And that golden snitch is also the philosopher's stone in alchemical like writings and symbolism and stuff. It's this like gold ball with wings on it, and that is the philosopher's stone. That is how you maybe your legacy, your immortality in the legacy that you build for your life. That is by grabbing that golden snitch, and then it also gives you all of the gold in the world as well. But the grabbing of that golden snitch, it's like the hero is happy to do that, and it is seeking that, and it's purpose driven. It's a part of the mission. And in Quidditch, they're flying around. You have your haters, you have like bludgers going around, you have like circumstances of your everyday life, you have your Malfoys and stuff trying to get your golden snitch away from you and things like this. People in the crowd trying to curse you from the stands when they're not willing to step in the ring. And Harry Potter, him grabbing that golden snitch is not just a celebration for him, but maybe even more so, it's a celebration for the house that he is a part of, for his community, for his family, for all of the Gryffindors, and it's almost like even other schools, because he took down the foe that is Slytherin in that case, in that micro game, that meta game. Then everybody, the whole school, is celebrating the success of that hero once they've succeeded in grabbing that golden snitch. And so it's like there's a lot of beautiful golden nuggets, and it's always it pleased me a little bit to see how like close to your heart Harry Potter seems to you. So it's really cool.
Yeah, you and we could totally nerd out on this.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, one other thing about spiritual involution.
Involution.
Involution. Can you tell us about what is that?
Somewhere in my learning, and I don't remember exactly where, because I can still hear it. It's echoing in my head, that before you have spiritual evolution, you must have spiritual involution. Before things can evolve, you must involve. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know what to do with that, but oftentimes when I'm writing, that word pops through my pen, and I almost always use a pen. I don't typically journal this way or this way. Almost always I got my pens right here. It's so old school. Frequently the word involution comes out. It's a reminder for me. I must involve myself in my life before it can evolve. And that's probably as deep as I can go right now, because I don't have language for it.
I think that is plenty deep, and it has to have depth, like even like great teachers and mentors and guides, gurus and sermons, ministers, all of the depth does not require a lot of language. the conciseness of it can be plenty deep enough. And I think what you said in just very few words is plenty deep enough. The spiritual involution, and it's a great like summary of a lot of the golden nuggets that one could receive from listening to this conversation. That being involved in your life. I've been reminded a couple of times during this conversation. I have a little book called "You Are a Verb," and that is you are an action. You are a verb in the world. It is for you to spiritually involve yourself. That involution will that's the trajectory to that's the guiding North Star for your spiritual development and your development in many areas of your life. So I think that this is such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, David Bruner. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. I love you very much. I only know you from like the sermons. I know you from little side conversations. But I love your authenticity. I love the essence of who you are as a man, and I'm just deeply grateful to have a relationship with you. Thank you so much.
I feel and think the same about you, Travis Gray, Mr. Travis Gray. That always makes me chuckle.
Dr. Travis Gray soon. I'm working on it. It'll be Dr.
When does that happen?
Today. So like this conversation will go out a little bit later, but today, I'm starting my study. So it has to get through this ethics committee, and then I'm hoping by September I will be walking for the PhD. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it.
It's a joy to be with you, Travis. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, take care.
Who is this man talking to you?